yes, it is Christmas season, but to me, Christmas season doesn't start until
After Thanksgiving?
yeah, after Thanksgiving. This whole fucking Christmas and October thing, I don't know if I can deal with that, bro.
I'm surprised Adriano was celebrating Halloween. I thought that was a pagan holiday.
I know, dude. And what was he? Mario?
It was Mario.
Yeah, Mario.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what he was thinking, dude. Yeah, we got to call him out on that in the chat, bro.
Is this 30-6?
No, it's a 223. Or that might be a 556. Yeah.
I was just saying 30-6 because,
Why?
Charlie Kirk, bro.
Oh, I know, dude.
Yeah.
No, they. I don't know why they thought that was a 30-6. That's kind of insane.
That's a whole nother conversation.
Very much.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I am ready for holidays. It is going to be it's the best time of the year, man.
Nothing like Christmas feeling.
Yeah. Do you get down with that? Is that your
Yeah.
thing?
Oh, yeah. I feel like if you had a decent childhood growing up and you got Christmas presents,
Yeah.
there's always this nostalgic feeling of just excitement and splendor because you get gifted with a bunch of stuff.
Dude, yeah, because that was I think when we were growing up, I think it's different now for like my kids' age, but like we didn't get shit until your birthday or Christmas.
Literally.
That was it.
Yeah, you didn't. If we went to Walmart and wanted a G.I. Joe, it's wait till your birthday or wait till
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah. Like, or it was the prep talk before you went in. Hey, don't ask me for anything.
Right.
Hey, or else.
Right.
And then it was like, all right, let's
and then
go
what
into
we
Walmart.
did is we all got $10 and would have to spend it on each other at a Dollar General.
Oh, really?
what
Oh,
we used
yeah,
to do.
dude. My mom used to do that. The
Yeah.
Dollar Tree days,
Yep,
man.
yep.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to get presents, you have to at least consider and be mindful of your siblings. So here's $10. Go
Split it
get go get some stuff at Dollar General.
Hey, at least $10 was worth more back then.
100%.
You know what I mean?
100%.
Had more of its value. Well, how was your Halloween?
Worked and then just did a bunch of stuff at the house.
Yeah.
My wife went and did like passing out candy and stuff like that, but mine was pretty uneventful.
Uneventful.
Yeah. When I have a family, I think it'll be different. So for
Yeah,
you,
it'll be different. Yeah, you get to walk around and see them all excited. My daughter was a fairy this year. My other daughter, who's turning 15, went to her first party. Yeah, that was awkward. I'm the parent that goes up to the door and where are the parents at? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, how you doing? Because in my mind, I feel like predators prey on easy targets, easy victims. So to me, it's like, if at least I introduce myself and they see this, kind of crazy looking guy out in the driveway, trying to shake your hand, say hello, maybe they'll think twice on my daughter. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the male presence in and of itself is something that is undervalued with regards to people preying on the vulnerable. I mean, think about it. Biblically, this is stuff that women and children are the vulnerable, and the males have to essentially maintain this consistent presence for the underlying threat of violence so people didn't act and behave out of pocket. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so
Kind of set that line in the dirt. Like, don't cross this. We're going to have issues. And that's what I try to tell my daughter. And she's like, and I get it. I would have probably been embarrassed as well. You know what I mean? But, I try to explain to her, it's like, just blame it on me. My daddy's so annoying. You know what I mean? But in reality, because I'm a different type of parent. I don't just tell her, hey, be quiet and listen to what I do. I was that parent when I was younger. I had to develop and learn and kind of shed the bad qualities that unfortunately were passed down from my parents that my parents ended up learning later on too. You know what I mean? Like, we're all like, I'm going to pass some probably bad habits down to my kid, and I hope she learns and we kind of strip that from her as well. And so she can continue to grow. But like when I told her, I was just like, I explained to her, hey, blame it on me, because I don't want you to be embarrassed, because I understand the pressures of dealing with your peers. But like, look what I'm doing for you. Not only am I, when she had the little boyfriend at the homecoming deal, that he came to the house and asked her, blah blah blah. Her first thing is, Dad, don't be weird, don't be weird. And I'm like, hey, I'm not being weird, but I have to set a standard, a line in the dirt that says, hey, dude, I know what you're thinking you want to do. Mm-hmm. Not happening here. Okay. And I know my daughter's not some perfect saint either. So I give the same speech to her as well. Like, hey, this ain't gonna, you know what I mean? I'm not biased. I'm not, like I'm giving both the same, I don't know what we're talking about. A word I'm looking for here. The same spiel,
Yeah, it's the same perspective of the wise elder, bro. That's especially being a girl dad. I think especially being a girl dad in the internet age, that's a whole other conversation. I've consulted with probably like a handful to 15, 20, maybe in that age or maybe in that like range of kids from the ages of 12 to about 20, boys and girls, mainly boys though. And the difference that I saw, or the difference in my approach when dealing with females, especially like teenage girls, was them understanding the difference in that interaction as like, like the gossipy, like all the stuff that like really I think is more prominent with young ladies than with young guys. I think with guys it's more the roughhousing, right? Which they're not now getting any
And the
of.
Standards they set on each other is insane.
It's insane.
I try to tell her that shit all the time. Like, she'll want eyelashes or nails and think she has to have them. I go, hey, babe, you don't, like, I've never met a guy that said, oh, I don't think this girl is pretty, because she doesn't have lashes on.
Right.
She doesn't have nails on.
And how do you train, or I don't want to use the word train, how do you
educate? It's almost like you have to, in a sense.
It's like, how do you educate a generation for variables that never existed in human history?
Right.
The internet never existed for all of human history. It's only been around since really like the 90s in terms of its mass accessibility.
But even before that, it was like magazines and movies
and
stuff.
And at the end of the day, I think there is a paradigm shift in each iteration of the access to that information. So when it's pre-1490 or 1492, no, that's when Columbus sailed the ocean blue. It's like 1464 then maybe. In the 1400s when the printing press was invented and then things could get printed en masse, that was a paradigm shift from the illiterate mass finally being able to have the potential for literacy. Then you start getting a little further and further where books become more abundant. Then the next serious paradigm shift was in industrialization, where you could have more of these printing presses to get more information out there. Then you get the 20th century where you're talking about some of the stuff you're talking about, where you have actual propaganda getting put in print and utilized for that purpose. Then you get the internet, and the internet is all of that at an exponential rate in terms of the access to information, let alone the potential access to bad information.
And now we're in the development of AI.
And that's the next paradigm shift.
And that's even scarier. Dude, some of the videos I've been seeing, bro, like I watched one of Erica Kirk making out with J.D. Vance on top of his coffin.
That's wild.
I was like, and dude, you can tell, but it's like, what is that going to look like in 10 years?
In 5 years.
Yeah.
In 2 years.
Relationships are already taking a hit already.
Yeah.
Now we're introducing AI. Dude, there's a story at my work. There was two guys on a job site. One of them sent an AI fucking video of his wife getting banged by by the guy on the site, him, and he sent it to him. And the dude went off. They got into a big old fight. Both got fired.
Goodness.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. That's wrong. That's out of pocket. Man to man, you can't do shit like that. There's
wife and kids get left out of it.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. Like, there are some things, like when you have really close friends and we're just like going to that dark sector of like comedy,
Right.
But like there's still a line. Like, you can't say something crazy, but like my thing is like, He was able to tell, but went to go try to beat his ass out of principal. When is it to where he can't tell? And then you're like, he's calling his wife going, what the hell?
I got a video of you having sex with Bobby Joe from the plant. Yeah.
So
man.
It's going to bring a lot of stressors, man. And it kind of scares me, dude, because, our generation already had a difficulty, I think, trying to keep relationships and normalize relationships because we had access, I think, fairly early. AOL started around my elementary days, and then Facebook started, or MySpace started, middle school? Because what are we? I'm 33. What are you,
28? 29 next week.
So, yeah. So, I mean, I guess maybe a little late.
Yeah, but
a little earlier for you.
It's still around the same age, and I also think it's the accessibility. So, I remember when my dad first got a computer, a bunch of my friends' families had already had computers for like 5 years at that point. Same thing with video games. It's like by the time I got a PlayStation or a GameCube, it had already been out for a couple years in terms of the accessibility because of how expensive it was for the first line consumers who were able to actually get their hands on those products. Computers, I think, being the biggest one. Because I know a lot of people that grew up in a more affluent environment that would say, what are you talking about having a computer in 2004? I had a computer in 1993 or something. And it's like, damn, okay. So it's the accessibility of that technology. The more early of an adopter you are, you probably grew up in a more affluent environment to get access to that technology.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Yeah.
So yeah, when it comes to you, like in middle school or whenever you started seeing some of these technologies come on the rise, it really, I think, is dependent on the environment you grew up in tandem with its accessibility.
Yeah, because we had a computer, but man, back then it was like
dial-up,
LimeWire days. You know, that you'd burn a CD on it. That's all I really did on it. You know, like when you found out you could make fucking free CDs, you know, you're like, I'm hopping on LimeWire making them, but. Yeah, sorry for that.
Another conversation.
Yeah, sorry for the family computer. How many viruses that got? Because
dude, I had our whole computer shut down downloading stuff from LimeWire.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like it just black one day.
You remember when MP3 CDs came out and you could have 100 songs on them?
Oh,
that
dude.
blew my mind, dude. And then when I seen the first iPod, and you could have like, I don't even know how many songs, ridiculous amount of songs.
Little iPod shuffle.
Yeah. No. I remember the one with the screen.
Yeah, no doubt. But I'm just saying the iPod Shuffle was, I think,
the small one?
Yeah, the real tiny one. I think that one for people being like, how does this small thing carry so much music? Whereas like a CD, I don't know, I think it had been around long enough for people to understand like, yeah, I don't know how they groove the data and the ones and zeros onto this disc, but this thing can hold a movie or music. But then you have this little tiny box you can clip on your waistband. And it's like, I can listen to thousands of songs.
It's wild.
It's completely wild, dude. Yeah, just think of where we come from since then is absolutely insane.
I know. But yeah, I mean, pretty much fathers be in your kids' lives, mothers be in your kids' lives, man. You got to watch them, dude, because there's a lot of crazy stuff going on, man, especially on the internet. It's wild. My daughter shows me some photos sometimes of, she'll be like, Dad, see, look what they do. And luckily she's smart enough, and I think she's starting to understand what I'm trying to do. I have very long conversations with her, almost like, you know, podcasts, you know, with
I think
her.
That's good though, bro.
Yeah.
You're instilling a level of wisdom that can only be passed on through concise and clear communication.
Yeah, and I will say to people listening, they will roll their eyes, they'll ignore it, they'll be upset about how many times you've repeated yourself, but keep doing it, okay? You got to, like, you know, tailor it a time or two. You don't have to give them an hour lecture every time. I've learned that, you know, but still instill the wisdom, because then, you know, it's like flashcards when you're trying to memorize, you know, for a test or whatever. You got to keep repeating, or working out.
Well, I also think 100%. I also think having those seeds of wisdom being instilled from an outside source that isn't directly you is important. So her having other positive male role models in her life that aren't necessarily dad, that are instilling the same wisdom, I think hits a little differently, which...
Yeah, like an uncle or like a older brother or something like that. Yeah, that is... I've always noticed that. I've noticed that in like movies or stories, or like even just myself. It's like when you're younger, for some reason, the impact from your father, it's like you don't appreciate that wisdom until you're older. But if you have like that cool uncle or that cool brother, you know, you tend to take their word as more gospel.
Yeah. It's literally biblical. So this is what I tell people all the time, especially parents, whenever I have them understand why I'm able to effectively communicate certain anecdotes of wisdom, though it may have been the exact same thing, even verbatim, word for word, that the parent has been trying to say. In the book of Mark, really, I think it's more explicit in the book of Matthew, Jesus is going back to his hometown, and everybody in his hometown is like, that's just Jesus. That's the carpenter's son. And so... Man, you're putting on some intense music as I'm saying this.
Bro. That would have been a good background.
Right? So Jesus goes back to his hometown, and everybody's like, that's just the carpenter's son. But all the apostles are like, Jesus, you're going to let them talk on you, saying you're not the son of God, saying you're not who you are, you're not who you say you are? And Jesus goes, listen, give these people grace. They knew me in my most vulnerable stages. They knew me as a kid. You're seen least as a prophet in your own home because they know the most intimate human side of you, where when you're trying to give them this extracurricular anecdote of wisdom, they're not hearing it from that higher level of potential wisdom. They're hearing it from that human that they've known. So when I try to give my siblings or like my parents advice or cousins, the further out of the familial circle you go, the less close to the home you are. I find it more effective to communicate that wisdom. But the closer to home you are, he is seen least as a prophet in his own home. That's the phrase.
Yeah.
The closer to home you are, the less likely they are to take my advice, because they're like, Mitchell, I've seen you shit your pants when you were a kid. How are you going to tell me how to eat right, how to move right? I knew you at your most vulnerable.
Right.
How can I take your advice?
Or they've seen your mistakes, or they've seen when you were a different person. Yeah.
So for you as dad, trying to give this information, trying to give this wisdom, it's the closest to home. So it's almost necessary to have that other that's a little further from the home that's instilling the same wisdom, so they can hear it unimpeded by the intimacy of how close you are to them.
Yeah. Or it's like the same with podcasting. I've always said this. There are people around me that know me, that support me. You know what I mean? Dom, and my brothers and even a handful of other people that have been there and supported fully, or watched or messaged me, man, that's really good. You're doing a great job. I love it. Giving it a chance. Mm-hmm. But I found a majority
are random people.
Are randoms.
Yeah.
Dude,
we can kind of get into not only FireProof, get into all my children's books. Yeah. Every book that I've published, even my documentary, bro, which is what's wild. Mm-hmm. Everything of creative produce that I've been able to create the last 10 years since my first book, everybody closest to me, my brothers and my sisters. And what's funny is my brothers have engaged less than my sisters have. My sisters have engaged a little bit more, but my siblings and then my cousins, and then again, the further out you go, there's way less support, let alone actual engagement with my creative produce since I've been like creating real stuff, like my books. Right. And so I don't take offense to it when it's like, hey bro, you seen my documentary yet? It went viral on YouTube. I went on 2 very prominent carnivore doctors podcasts that got tens of thousands of views each. Yeah. Other people are showing the value or appreciating the value that they got from it. Have you seen it yet? Have you read my book yet? And more times than not, it's, no, I read a little bit of it. I saw some of it. And I don't take any offense to it.
And I don't know why, because if it would have been some doctor who wrote that book with like 1 million followers, they would have jumped on it immediately.
But he is seen least as a prophet in his own home. That's the wisdom of it. And here's the thing, bro. That's why I think there's so much, whether you're atheist, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Hindu, there's so much wisdom in being able to explore different religious testimonies. And I think within the Christian testimony, there is a timeless wisdom that almost every culture and tradition can relate to because of where it was placed at the time that it was placed in.
Right.
And like it wasn't, if you're talking about like ancient Sumer, they could barely write at the time. So their ability to articulate certain anecdotes of wisdom is way less than something 2,000-3,000 years later. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's like when you have at least enough of a grounded understanding in a lot of that ancient wisdom, it can put you at ease from the human emotional side of your baseline reaction you want to give or you want to manifest versus the true wisdom of why that behavior is what it is. Like for my siblings, it's easier for me as somebody with that religious understanding to know, I get it. I'm your brother. You don't see the wisdom as coming from the same source of purity because of how tainted your view is of me, given the fact that you've seen me at my lowest, whereas these random people only see me in that pure form, in that form of giving wisdom, so they're way more likely to give it the weight that it deserves. So I'm going to give you grace for not essentially supporting me, even though deep down, a lot of your lack of support comes from a completely different place, not just to being seen least as a prophet.
Right.
And that's a whole nother convo we can have in terms of, maybe it's because they don't have that religious foundation, which is why they default to their monkey brain of, you're my brother, bro. I've seen you do X, Y, Z. Why am I going to listen to that?
Right.
Versus stepping out of that impulsive reaction, being like, well, I am considering what you've gone through. I am considering how other people are affected by it. Maybe there is some wisdom to what you're trying to prescribe to the populace. Maybe Agreed. There is some, but they're so caught up in their monkey brain because of modernity, because of the day and age we just live in, that it's easier for them to fall into that, man, you're my brother. I'm seeing you least as a prophet because you're close to my home.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And and it's because it's wild to me because like we met when? What year was that? 2023.
I think it was right after my Crohn's.
Yeah.
So it must have been, no, it was 2024.
2024. Okay.
Last year. Yeah.
Okay. And when I
It's so wild because it's quality of time, not quantity of time.
Right.
I wouldn't even think I've only known you for a year.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like when I came across your stuff, like, Healthy Made Easy, which is in the back right there. And I told you, man, I was like, dude, because, we started communicating. I read that book and I was like, holy shit, man, I've never, been able to sit down and actually read a book like that, that I felt like was explained in to me in layman's terms, to where I don't have to start eyes rolling back, after the first 3 pages, because I just can't, like they're trying to Jordan Peterson talk me. Right. You know what I mean? You know how he'll just go off and Jordan Peterson, he's cool at times on some of the stuff he discusses, but he sometimes What
do you mean by believe? What do you mean by? It's like, bro, do you believe in Jesus or not?
Yeah. and it's almost, but then he'll like go off on a rant like for 10 minutes and he could have said it in like 1 minute.
Literally.
Everyone could have understood, but no one understood what the hell he said after 10 minutes. So when I read that, and then when I, got the Hope and Grace book, I thought that was really cool. And then now, with this one, Fireproof, I'm on chapter 3 since you barely gave me the book yesterday.
Dude, you're savage for getting to chapter 3. Yeah.
And actually, I thought the chapters were going to be longer, but they're not which was
long,
actually pretty nice.
150 pages.
Dude, but you know what I like about that? It feels like you're gaining momentum in a book. If you don't make every chapter like 20 freaking pages, it feels nice. It feels like you got to a good spot, I don't know how to explain. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So the resolve, though, the being able to find resolution in a dense amount of information, especially when it's an informative piece of work, I think that is very relieving for a lot of people knowing, oh man, I thought there might have been 10 more pages to conclude and resolve this information I'm learning in this particular chapter.
When did you start thinking of this book? About how long ago?
So
when did you start kind of brainstorming and, doing all the things? What is the process of writing a book? Like, how does that start? You just get an idea and you start jotting notes down?
Yeah, so I have probably 100 notes in my phone. That's book idea, book title. And so what I do is I think about an idea first, and then from that idea, I create, just like in elementary school, I create an outline. From that outline, like a blueprint, I go in and I start from the macrocosmic view, slowly going in and refining all the microcosmic points. So what I first do, and this is what I did with Fireproof, is I ruptured my Achilles in June. I was bedridden for about 10 weeks. And about 2.5 weeks in, I knew that there was an incompletion to Healthy Made Easy because of how much I had learned from the point of publishing it, let alone the point of originally writing it. Right. I started writing Healthy Made Easy 2021 is when I really started writing it. I completed it in 2023, got sick a week later after publishing it. And from the time I got diagnosed with Crohn's, which was 2023, November 12th, which Fireproof comes out to the day on November 12th of this year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So almost like an homage. That's the whole point of it. I realized through how much I had updated my software in the knowledge of health and wellness, namely in nutrition, that there was a lot of incompletion to Healthy Made Easy. And I always knew I was going to remaster or at least update Healthy Made Easy, but I didn't want to ignore what had caused me to update that information, which for me was the Crohn's experience. So I said, you know what? Why don't I just write a new book covering from the time I got diagnosed with Crohn's to the time of currently the present, we'll say, of me garnering more information that's more effective in helping out the people that I've helped, namely in the last 2 years since updating that info. So for about 4 years, I was focusing on nutrition from a more, what's the word I want to, mainstream point of view, in the sense that information from the 70s, 80s, and 90s is really what I was operating from, whereas most of the modern information that's on the frontier of nutrition, which is going to be really 2010 plus, I was realizing, man, I need to really update this software if I'm going to resolve my Crohn's. And so for 2 years from 2023 to now, I've gone even further on updating the more modern approach, the less mainstream, it'll be mainstream in probably 10 years, but the less mainstream approach to how we resolve modern chronic disease, namely my Crohn's disease, and the approach that I found that worked for me seems to be a universal standard that works for other people outside of my specific disorder. It comes to diabetes, it comes to Alzheimer's, dementia, cardiovascular disease, all of these other modern chronic diseases. I would say upwards of 80% stem from the same underlying preconditions that I wasn't as in tune with when I wrote Healthy Made Easy.
Right.
And so when I'd ruptured my Achilles, I went, I got nothing but time right now. Let me sit down. Let me actually see if I can put pen to paper the updated perspective that I think is worthy for people to learn in order to know more on how I'm seeing food and nutrition now versus how I saw it back then. Right. Biggest example is like macros and calories. I used to harp on that in Healthy Made Easy, but I almost never mentioned that in FireProof because of the insignificance of those variables in conjunction with more important variables like insulin resistance, like fat burning pathways versus carb burning pathways. These are things that I put more of a prominence on after learning what caused my Crohn's and how to resolve my Crohn's.
Yeah, and the same thing about FireProof too, man. Like when I started reading it, I was like, because these books, like we were talking before off camera, sometimes when you start getting into some of these books that have to deal with, glucose and your, metabolic rate, all this stuff, dude, it's like, it's almost difficult to be able to understand and stick with it. You know what I mean? But the way you've got it where it's almost like, you're speaking to a person who doesn't have an education in this, and as well as showing your story as well in this. I mean, do you mind if I read
100%? A little bit? Do you think?
Like there was one that I had seen that I had, marked down, where you were first at the doctor's, getting the news. And, this kind of resonates too with a lot of people, not even with Crohn's, but like you put that you were your body no longer showed an elite athlete body, but an emasculated skeleton with tired eyes.
Emaciated skeleton.
Emasculated.
I
don't know.
That might have been an appropriate
It's 8 a.m, man. All right. It's a little early today. Gaunt where I'd be strong, hollow where I'd been solid. My clothes starting to fit like they belonged to someone else. After days and nights of testing, the doctors finally walked in. Their faces told the story before their mouths did. One of them closed the door behind him like he was sealing off bad news from the rest of the world. He pulled up a chair and took a breath that felt too slow for comfort. Like, thinking of that, dude, putting yourself in that. This is what I like, that you're, incorporating both, so that way it's not all the scientific nutritional I cannot speak today. The verbiage. You're giving a relatable experience, because there's going to be people that have like a cousin or a sister or dad or themselves that have been in those situations. So you're putting a good picture, like you're kind of putting it in their head of like, this could be you. You know what I mean?
Whether it's a cancer diagnosis, trouble with pregnancy, there's a multitude of experiences.
People know that feeling.
Yeah. And that's why, and if there's any other thing, I think it'd be good at any point if you want to read parts of it, like to give the audience kind of an idea, because that part in particular, Enza made the same point. Because in the prologue, when I originally wrote it devoid of the consideration of like Enza, the consideration of my wife in experiencing from her perspective what I was experiencing. It was pretty much just my perspective. And when I went back and reread the prologue, I was like, man, there's a whole other side of this that I think other people that aren't in my shoes can appreciate as a bystander to witnessing one of their loved ones go through something that's as severe as what I did with my Crohn's.
Yeah, and how you worded it to where it almost made the impact double on you, because you're not only suffering yourself. I mean, you're talking about having shit put down your nose and getting fluid out of your fucking stomach, and, having to see your fiance there bearing the whole thing. It's just, man, dude, and what was the percentage? Is it like in population of people having Crohn's or any type of diseases?
Like autoimmune disease?
Yeah.
Well, so the book being Healing Modern Disease, I try to express how my Crohn's is one small drop, or other people with Crohn's, it's one small drop in the bucket of everybody who's essentially sick.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's 88% of Americans. 88% of Americans have some form of metabolic disorder.
But that's what I like that you're explaining in here. It's not the fact of like, you can't read this and just go, well, he's got Crohn's. I don't have Crohn's.
Right.
It's the fact of everybody is dealing with inflammation in their gut, and it's causing all these different diseases and all these. I mean, they're saying cancer is related to what we eat, and it's just. I don't know how it's more to harp on. Like if you don't have this, information, and to be able to understand of what the actual impacts are if you don't utilize this information to change your diet, what is going to happen to you? Like this is going to happen, and I'm just as guilty of it. We've talked many times of sugar intake that I have with, my Starbucks, which I've changed. I'm a Dutch Bros guy now. Zero sugar. I'm not saying it's the best, but I'm kicking sugar out of it. I'm working on these things, but the more and more I see, it's like the more and more I read and the more stories that I'm hearing and reading about, it's like, man, it's getting to that point, and especially as I'm getting older, I'll be 34 in January. I've got to start changing some shit, quickly, because it's only getting worse and worse.
Bro,
as you get older, it's going to get worse.
100%. Yeah. Cancer, these autoimmune disorders, heart attacks, they were never in the medical literature up until really the early 1900s.
Mm-hmm. Or even the small things like bloating you wrote in there. Like people just, I'm bloated. That's not good.
Yeah, that's a sign that your body is having an adverse reaction to something you ate. But it sucks because even in my most vulnerable, when enduring the Crohn's, as I'm in the hospital with an NG tube through my nose, which is a nasogastric tube, which essentially, when I'd gotten sick, your intestines are like a tube. And what happened is, with Crohn's, you start getting what are known as strictures, which means that tube starts tightening up. And what happened with me is it tightened up so much that it completely got obstructed. And so when food was trying to come in, it was blocked in, and so it couldn't go anywhere. So what happened to that food? It started causing the intestines to inflate to the point where at 6 centimeters, it'll usually perforate and it'll explode. And if you have a perforated intestine, you're essentially going to die. Like there is a high likelihood of you just dying because of all of that gunk that's backed up is now going to be septic in the entire system. It's going to get on like your organs. It's going to get in places that requires severe sterilization. And so even at my most vulnerable, the experts were telling me that things like bloating are normal. They were telling me that things like nutrition fundamentally isn't influential enough to really mitigate or cause my disorder. It was just a genetic abnormality, just randomly happened. And at that point, like I said, I had already published Healthy Made Easy when I'd gotten sick. So I knew that food had something to do with the underlying ailments of every human in the modern day and age. We'll just say at least 80%, namely in America, namely in the Western world, let alone for someone like me who is so healthy, getting hit with this out of nowhere. And my lifestyle standards leading up to that point were so trash in that I wasn't working out and I was eating like garbage leading up to finally getting sick, that the experts were telling me it was nothing to worry about.
Right.
So if the experts, the GI specialists are saying bloating's normal, having diarrhea infrequently is normal, you resolve it by eating fiber, you should do XYZ. They told me to go on a certain diet that made my stuff worse. They told me to go on a brat diet, which was bananas, rice, apples, and toast. And I can't eat any of those foods now. Bananas, rice, apples, and toast. Yeah, toast, bro. Think about that.
Yeah.
White bread. Toasted. So,
and go look at the ingredients in a lot of that white bread. It's insane.
So you haven't gotten there yet, but go to the back of the book, go to the FireProof Foods, and I think it's like page 117, and you'll notice page 118, you'll notice the underlying ingredients that I call out, let alone, so you have the whole food list. And see how exhaustive it is. Yeah. Now go to the next page. Same thing, exhaustive. Hella foods you have approved. Go to the next page. You then have your middle ground foods that for some people are problematic for the most part, but some people have a decent tolerance to it. So I call those middle ground foods. You have to experiment with those. Then you have the bad foods. But go to the next page. Look at all of those added ingredients. I have 4 pages worth of added ingredients that you can be on the lookout for. And there's some positive ones in there. So if you have like raw honey,
I was about to say, I'm looking at raw honey right there.
And look at it. It has a positive rating, and it gives you the reasoning behind it. So I'm not only telling you what ingredients you can look out for.
I love when you do this in the book, dude. I'm being serious. This is nice. This is really nice. About invert sugar, corn syrup. I mean...
Yeah, not only are you getting the entire list, you're getting the whether or not it's something to completely avoid, something that's a middle ground, or something that's approved, and it gives you the reason.
High fructose corn syrup.
Which, imagine you go into the store and you have that to cross-reference with whenever you're auditing your nutritional sources.
Snap a couple pictures off the book and then, go in there, So but read the book too. So, because you could have this information, but you need to understand why.
And the understanding of why is so crucial. And that's why I was trying to blend in memoir.
Sodium phosphate, sodium nitrate, calcium what's it say?
Monosodium glutamate.
Propionate. Oh, is that what he's drinking over there?
No, that's what's in a lot of food from a certain place.
Oh,
not just his place, a lot of other places.
Artificial colors, xanthan gum, guar gum. Yeah, it's just...
So I mixing.
What are the yellows? Oh, plus and minus?
Yeah, those are the middle grounds. You have to be weary of them.
Oh, okay.
They're maybe not as problematic, so you need to...
Does that when genes kind of play a factor when those?
Genes, environmental factors, the state of wherever your body currently is. So if you're severely obese, no matter your genetic predisposition, if you're severely obese and you eat some of those foods, your body will react completely different than if you were to get healthy, get to a normal level of adiposity, lose a lot of that fat, and then were to consume those foods, you may react completely different to it. Which is why I call everything I do in here a therapeutic. All the protocols are acting as therapeutics to reset your body to a baseline normal so you can actually discover what foods are good or bad.
Right. Hey, Dom, can you pull up real quick his documentary on your laptop, please? I wish there was a timestamp, but I at least want people to see because I've been harping on this. Yeah, I understand not everybody, likes to read or whatever it may be. I think you should. I mean, you said this book is,
150 pages.
150 pages, not long. Healthy Made Easy is around the same.
Pages.
100 pages.
Yeah.
These are easy. These are a quick, 3-hour whatever ordeal. But I also think the documentary is what will set people into this this path
because you can visually see.
And what's crazy to me. Oh, this right here.
Yeah. Like, go to the part with the...
Yeah, no, I do. I want to see the part where he's in the hospital. I think it was at North Kansas City Hospital, and he's getting pretty much, with the explanation from the doctors that diet has nothing to do with it, and you're just going to be stuck on these pills, and you got to take them, and there's really no other thing that you can.
Can I ask you a few professional questions?
Sure.
Have you ever heard of anybody going into remission without having to take those medicines?
If it's not those things.
You've never heard of anybody going into remission without taking...
Not without taking something, at least for a period of time. So if you have, like, say, Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis, just doing a dietary change does not fix that.
What essentially fixes it then?
Medicine. You would need to be on some medication, probably lifetime.
You have to take this. Oh my God, probably lifetime.
And nothing that you could do would really, meaning food or elimination of food or changing your foods would change that.
Pause that. That's what it baffles my mind. How confident she is. Nothing can change that. And then you hear how she kind of laughs. Not even food.
How about this? She was obese.
Oh my God, that drives me fucking nuts.
Both the GI specialists were.
Oh my God. Yeah, when I see a fat doctor, bro, it drives me nuts.
And let alone when they're a fat doctor that are experts in the very thing, the very place, the very field of study that food is the most implicated.
Like, at least if you're going to be a fat doctor, at least be truthful. Just know like, hey, don't follow my example because, I'm not definitely following my own advice, but this is the actual advice. Right. At least have the and give the actual advice, not tell somebody, oh, you're fucked.
So now imagine, bro, I'm 153 pounds. I'd lost almost 50 pounds sitting in that office with that GI specialist. And I am, for all intents and purposes, like most patients, even though I had more of an educated background on human anatomy, nutrition, digestive system, all that, I still felt like they're right. Like, man, maybe food does have nothing to do with it.
Start questioning yourself.
Yeah, and that by definition is them gaslighting me, bro.
Yeah.
Like people nowadays talk about like gaslighting and all stuff. Like that by definition quite literally made me feel like maybe they're right. And if I would have followed what they wanted me to do, you heard her, I would have been dependent on medication for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I'm now ridiculous. 2 years deep, no medication, not one drop, and I've put my Crohn's in remission.
Yeah. Hey, can you play that again? I want to see a little bit more.
So if it's Crohn's, essentially Humira, Entyvio,
those types of things, yes.
And that fixes it?
Well, it should.
Patients who have Crohn's disease, they don't improve just with dietary changes. It's an autoimmune disorder.
Oh, this is the second
regardless
GI, right? This is the guy.
Any dietary changes, that won't change any inflammation.
I just really don't understand how.
I mean, we have decades of research that proves that.
Show me the decades of research.
What?
That dietary changes will not cure Crohn's disease.
And I'm not even talking about curing Crohn's disease. If it's any form of inflammatory bowel disease, I'm curious as to how inflammatory behaviors, namely foods that are being processed in the very GI tract where the inflammation is occurring, how that has no influencing variable in contributing to the overall inflammation of that inflammatory bowel disease.
Right. So what I'm hearing you say is that because Crohn's disease is an inflammatory process, that if you make dietary changes, that should entail decrease the amount of inflammation that's in the body.
Right.
It just doesn't work that
How does it not?
To be quite honest with you.
How wild is that?
How does that not work? And saying you have decades of research, okay, but from who?
Show me 5 studies because I'll show you 10.
Yeah, and then show me the counter arguments. Show me the debate. Show me the evidence. I don't.
The problem is here's and this is where again, being able to step out of my own emotion and try to empathize with their perspective. Because I don't think that they're just evil degenerates lying.
No, but you need to ask, how was the research done? On the trials, what were they giving them?
The methodological rigor is what you're talking about. What was the methodology behind the actual studies? Mm-hmm. What was the outcome of the studies? What was the significance of the studies, which is known as a p-value? Like, I was so prepared, and I had about 5 different studies in my pocket to show him and the other specialist, but it never got to that point, especially towards the end of the documentary, where he goes, we're running out of time today, so we've kind of talked too long. And he just kicked me out of the office. I try to give them grace on this front. They went to school. Ask any doctor, any medical doctor, anybody in the medical industry. Peter Attia went on 60 Minutes not that long ago, and he even alluded to this in terms of exercise science, but it's more important on the nutritional side. Doctors in the medical field get 0 to maybe a couple hours of nutritional information and nutritional education. Same with the exercise science. Mm-hmm. But they spend their entire tenure as a student when becoming a medical doctor learning about medicine. Mm-hmm. And then when they become actually credentialed, they are getting their continued education through these medical, we'll just say the medical industrial complex, mainly through these pharmaceutical companies and these medical governing bodies like the NIH, the CDC. So they're continuing their education under the auspices of medical information.
Right.
And I'm of the mindset of, can I really blame them for not having their curriculum be qualified enough to give them the information they need? I can't really blame them. Where I do blame them is being lazy once they've gotten credentialed. I blame them for being lazy once they've got credentialed, not learning what seems to be new on the frontier of this science of them helping people. Mm-hmm. And like I said, really since like 2010, really only in the last 10, 15 years have we started getting new information, updated information on how disease actually works, and more doctors than not that are mindful enough and considerate enough of their patients to continue their education outside of the medical. They're starting to discover that medicine is only a Band-Aid when resolving any issue. And if you're going to actually resolve any of these modern diseases, healing modern disease by taming chronic inflammation, you have to approach it from the actual root cause, which is inflammation.
Yeah.
And when you give these medical approaches all you're doing is mitigating the symptoms. You're never addressing the root cause. And that's all they know.
It's just a Band-Aid for the underlying
condition. And that's all they know, which is why, in the moment when I'm super sick and I'm feeling gaslit, I am going to feel some emotional type of way. And I am going to demonize them for their degenerate perspective, literal degenerate perspective.
And you're not saying all of them. There are good doctors out there.
Of course not.
You list a bunch of them in the book.
100%.
A ton of them. I was like, God damn, I didn't know you follow all those people,
Dude, the only people, most people will follow, like, they'll watch Love Island and they'll follow these celebrities, rappers, all this stuff. I truly feel like that's the biggest disservice in our modern day and age, in our modern culture. Mm-hmm. And we can talk about the underlying reasons why that may be a thing.
The distraction.
The distraction from actually educating the populace and putting the worthy people of celebration, we'll say the worthy celebrities, in a position of place where their information can actually help people. It's like, instead of worshiping Cardi B and Drake and these athletes, LeBron James and Patrick Mahomes, there's no doubt that if they're doing good things, to give them the credit they deserve. But why aren't we praising the Ben Bickmans? Why aren't we praising the Anthony Chaffees, the Sean Bakers, the Nick Norwitzes of the world? Why aren't we praising these people that are actually making a change to resolving people's chronic diseases? Why? Because honestly, it takes a lot of thinking and a lot of brain power to be entertained by education. Yeah. And it's so much easier to just be entertained by entertainment that most people default to that. I've conditioned myself, and this is one thing I've done with a lot of kids that I've worked with and a lot of adults that I've worked with, is I don't have an issue with you watching Sunday football or you engaging in going to a concert, but balance out that entertainment with some form of education. Moderation. And if you can balance those two out, you'll be able to educate yourself in a way where you appreciate the sort of information that I get from a lot of the doctors that I allude to and cite in the book. Because there's hundreds of citations that I use. I'm not just talking shit in terms of the science. I'm citing all my sources from primary source doctrines, which again goes back to, don't take it from me and my experience and my story. Take it from what seems to be just the science of the situation.
Yeah. How are you able to look at these doctors that you're listing in the book as people that you are following, that you are getting your information from? How are you weeding out the ones that you're not, like that you see have no credibility in their studies or their research or their information that they're giving out? How are you able to see through that stuff?
So compartmentalizing the charlatans versus those that are actually trying to help is the best way I like to think about it. First off, I take nobody's information at face value. So even someone like Ben Bickman, who I think that dude needs to just have so much praise and worship because he's on the frontier of really discovering where diseases are root cause.
Is he starting to?
Somewhat. It's almost like the Peter Attia effect, where Peter Attia, like 5-6 years ago, is where Ben Bickman currently is, where I hope in 5 to 6 to 10 years, he's going to get that recognition and credibility.
Are they taking advantage of like podcasts and stuff?
Oh, yeah, but no one's jumping on to praise it because the education versus entertainment. Yeah. But I think that's
we need to mix.
I agree.
Two.
That's why I try to do with FireProof.
And that's why I like that you come on podcasts like this, because you really don't need to. I mean, hell, there's a podcast you did with Anthony, whatever his name. It's got 35,000 views compared to mine that only get barely 100. So I appreciate that. You know what I mean? And but whatever way you can get the word out, that's what you're doing. Mm-hmm. And I hope more people are following that same suit, which I think they are.
Agreed. Yeah. It just takes time. Yeah. So what I would say is, how do I discern between credible, seemingly on the frontier doctors versus doctors that are just trying to sell something? Because there's a lot of doctors in the space that I'm in of taming chronic disease, taming chronic inflammation, that are just trying to sell something.
Right.
I'll give you a few names and a few examples, but there is still merit to the things that they're doing. You've got people like Ben Bickman, Sean Baker, and Anthony Chaffee, who don't really have a product they're selling. They may have books that they're selling, which I think is a good product to sell if it's informative and information dense to get across solid information. Mm-hmm. But then you have people like Paul Saladino, people like Steve Gundry, that sell actual supplements, that sell actual products from their own companies, that are trying to be the solution to the actual problems instead of the information being the solution. And so what I do is it's a character assessment. It's legit psychoanalyzing these individuals not just from their behavior and the information they're trying to give, but cross-referencing it with other people in their industry. So I'll take someone like a Ben Bickman. He'll say something like, insulin resistance is the main issue amongst all modern disease. And I go, well, what's insulin resistance? And I'll look up what insulin resistance is. And then I'll research what insulin resistance is. Then I try to cross-reference it with other seemingly prominent figures in the community to see if they're talking about this particular topic of study.
But that's got to be difficult, right? Because you're doing this on Google, and all the probably the ones that aren't as truthful are going to be at the top of that list.
So
right?
but that's where.
So how do you navigate that?
You don't just Google stuff. So when you're synthesizing research data, meaning when you're researching things and then analyzing the information that you're researching, it's just called synthesizing data. Whenever you're trying to take all this information, figure out what it means, and then try to explain it to other people, it isn't as simple as just Googling something or chat GPTing something. You have to, what I do is I'm watching hours long of lectures from these primary sources, and I'm literally spending, instead of spending 2 hours watching a movie, I'm spending 2 hours watching Ben Bickman actually go through a lecture in a study hall over certain niche, minute concepts like insulin resistance. So one doctor may talk about it as insulin resistance is why most people are sick. And what I'll do is I'll watch 5 different lectures from 5 different sources that are all an hour to 2 hours long each. I'll even take notes over these lectures, and then I will cross-reference all 5 of those sources and come to a sound conclusion that overlap in all 5 of those sources.
Right.
And so I'm doing what most people won't do and just don't do, which is totally fine, no judgment on their end, of actually educating myself through the lens of not just one source, but multiple sources. And then when you can see what overlaps in all of those multiple sources, you can start seeing how a lot of these sources are saying the same exact thing.
Right.
And what they're all saying is a lot of stuff that has only recently been understood and discovered in the last 10 to 20 years. And that's where a lot of these outdated doctors, a lot of these outdated influencers, they discredit a lot of these on the frontier doctors and influencers that I like to follow and like to cite. But I'm not even just citing them. I'm citing the sources that they're citing, which are the actual primary sources. When I cite them, it may be from a secondary source. They're saying, I read a study, but I'll actually go to the primary source, the actual study they're referencing, to audit its credibility and its efficacy, which goes back to the things I was telling you earlier. The population size, which is the N size, how many people are in the study, the p-value, which means how effective were the outcomes of this study, the methodology behind the study, how about the contributors behind the study, the actual people that are contributing to the study. A lot of these studies that are sourced and cited by a lot of the people that downplay the people I cite, a lot of the outdated scientists and influencers, there's a real prominent one, dude named Lane Norton. He's a super prominent one, and he's too scared to debate a lot of these prominent guys on the frontier because deep down he dismisses them as not even worth debating because they're woo-woo, they're on the frontier. Yeah. We don't have 20 years of data yet. And so what they'll do is they'll cite studies that deep down are being funded by Coca-Cola, Procter & Gamble. The methodological rigor, the methodology behind it. They'll do things like vegan studies or vegetarian studies. And what they'll compare them to, there was a vegan versus meat-based study or a vegan versus a keto-based study. And it's like, okay, but what were the foods that the keto or the meat-based people were eating? Right. In 900 plus studies that were done, there was a meta-analysis done, meaning they took all 900 studies and kind of took the conclusion of all of them en masse. And what they discovered was of 900 studies that demonized red meat, saying red meat caused cancer, red meat rots in your stomach, and all of these sort of conclusions that were drawn that are still prominently portrayed by a lot of people.
Yep.
The studies that they're sourcing are from usually this list of over 900. It's really like 890, I think. Every single one of those studies qualified red meat as if you ate lasagna, if you ate pizza, if you ate a cheeseburger with the bread and the pickles and the lettuce and the BS.
Yeah. What's in that, people? What is in that?
Yeah, and so...
How are you supposed to base a study off of one whole food being the meat, and then, but also the testing's done with with
other influencing variables,
other carbs,
other influencing factors, other factors that aren't taken into account when drawing this baseline conclusion
that are causing inflammation.
So now imagine how many people come into my domain, whether it's my gym or I'm consulting with them online. How many people come into my domain and they go, well, I don't want to eat red meat because it's bad for you. Or they go, I prefer pea protein or beans as my form of protein, plant proteins, because they're better for you. And I go, well, where'd you get that information? Instead of me completely shutting down their perspective, and where are they getting that from? They're getting it from TikTok, and the guy on TikTok or the girl on TikTok is a secondary source that is usually citing another secondary source. So really, they're a tertiary source. They're a third source citing a doctor that they heard. Yeah. That doctor is citing a trash study, and no one's really going to the primary sources.
And that doctor's getting funded.
And so what I did is I made sure, and this goes back to you saying, how do you discern between worthy celebratory doctors that are giving good information versus the ones that are just trying to sell something, giving bad information? I go to the primary sources. I don't even listen to the doctor really. I go to the primary source. And when you can go to the primary source, like we can talk a little bit about energy metabolism and all that today a little bit. That's really what the book is about. But I go to the primary source doctrine, I go to the actual science, and then I listen to the experts in their field give the nuance of that information from the primary source. And once you can qualify that their citation of the primary source is legit, you can then learn from the actual secondary source, being the doctor themselves, to a more efficient degree because they're actually in the field themselves. Yeah. And so then you can learn more from a more nuanced perspective because you're able to learn from the actual expert. And a lot of these guys are professors. Like Ben Bickman's an actual professor. So I'm learning from the expert in his field who's actually teaching students regularly in his own curriculum that's undergirded in all of this information.
All right. Dude, I think what it is, man, and I think this is, how do I put this? I think, for instance, like my job, the place I'm working for now, they do all underground utilities. So there's sewer, storm, water, all of that stuff. And I remember my buddy Frank told me, it's like a job that gets no glory, no credit, because at the end of the day, once the trench is filled back, nobody even knows what's underneath there and what they're actually getting. You're able to shit without having to take that stuff outside. You're able to get water without having to go to some river and have to, dechlorinate it and filter it and do all that shit. You're not having to worry about storm water, completely flooding out your home. All these things that require a lot of knowledge, a lot of manpower, a lot of, so much behind it.
Are underappreciated.
Yeah. You walk across that street, you don't see the huge grid and maze of all these lines running underground. People like the guys I work with and me, we get to see it because we're there while it's getting installed. But, your common everyday people, they're just more annoyed that it's even happening, or they're just walking across it, not thinking about it.
Same thing with disease.
Yeah, it's the same thing with disease. It's the same thing with the people that we worship. It's like we worship the pretty buildings, you know what I mean? And credit to them as well, credit to the Mahomes and those type of people as well. But like the people that are doing the infrastructure work, the uncelebrated or like not recognized or
the
not,
unrecognized work.
Yeah. Like these people, like the doctors that you're following, that maybe isn't as sexy, isn't as glorifying, or whatever it may be. But man, that is the heart.
Dude, imagine
you could have that beautiful building, but if you don't have water and sewer running to it,
sure.
How long are you going to stay in it?
How long will it be sustainable? Man, that's why, like, I imagine if, like, let's say career day, your daughter, how old is your youngest daughter?
7.
So your 7-year-old has dad come in to talk about what he does for a living.
Right.
I wish at a younger age that the curriculum itself was one that allowed the youth to appreciate all of the things that keep society running. And that would change their mind towards how they value certain celebrations, certain worthy celebrities and things of celebration as they get older.
Yeah.
And so if someone like you is able to, and I think that's an amazing anecdote that you just kind of expressed, is someone like you who's in the field of a particular work that is underappreciated, but is the underlying foundation from which our society can even be upheld.
Yeah.
It's like they're never educated on that.
No.
Like they're never taught that thing. So I think that has a lot to do with the public education, has a lot to do with media itself. I mean, dude, there's a whole host of reasons why we're only being fed certain information. TikTok in China, the algorithm is geared towards science, math, and education. TikTok in America, the algorithm is geared towards degeneracy and entertainment. And so I think a lot of it has to do with what we're being fed by people in power for particular reasons, but also the parents and the community not being as involved as it should be to be oblivious to these underlying influencing variables. So they're caught off guard down the road once their kid or once their community is plagued with a certain perspective.
Right. And think about this too. And for everybody listening and watching, those people that you worship on every Sunday, those people that you worship because of the music they make or the movies that you watch or the political figure that you adore and vote for, we always know that people with money are the ones who dictate things that happen in society, right? What are those people doing? Because we're continually going down the slope, the downward slope that we've been going down on, for the last 100 years, I guess we could say.
Health, education, all those things.
Everything. So why do we continue to look up to them when they're not doing anything?
Because they don't know better. That's why this goes back to giving even the
who doesn't know better? The people
the
or
people. The
yeah,
people.
I understand that. And
just like the GI specialists, they don't know better. Why? Because the power creates a curriculum that numbs them to the reality.
Right. And a lot of the time, I know what you
Matrix
mean.
shit.
Because me being, and I was just talking to my buddy Chris Schaub, he's been on the show, me thinking that everybody has the time to consume 10 hours of content is unreal daily. You know, I was very fortunate for over a decade to be able to do that. When I was a machinist, it was very isolating work by myself. I could have an earbud in, listening to these debates, listening to, to be able to cross-reference information. But now, and this has happened before when I was in PM work.
What's PM work?
Project management.
Gotcha.
So when you're in these type of fields, your whole day is consumed. You're on the phone all day, your emails all day, you're out at site all day. You don't have time to sit there for 3 hours, let alone 10, to be able to digest this.
Same thing with these doctors, right?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I have a doctor buddy of mine named Luke. There is an app or a website that they pay for yearly. It's actually quite a bit of money, but it keeps. I guess it's a centralized location for all new studies, and he uses it very frequently.
I have a doctor friend of mine that I am able to access that information through him, essentially.
Really?
Yeah.
That's really neat, because I actually wanted to check that out too to see what they're looking at, because I don't know.
That's how you get to the primary sources.
Yeah, I don't know how biased they are on that. I don't know if they have debatable data.
Dude, that's why deep down it's like also that information is behind a paywall, essentially. Like the primary sources are behind a paywall. Yeah. And so it's not really accessible to most people. My bad.
Which no, but that's what they're doing is they're keeping it.
Yeah, they're gatekeeping the information, bro.
But, which, I mean, how do you feel about that?
I think that we're getting to a point where you can't really gatekeep it, because the people that are studying these primary source doctrines give access to people like me, so I can then access it, let alone are educating the masses through their conclusion after having access to that primary source doctrine.
And if you think about it, the gatekeeping, look at all these hospitals. Look how beautiful they are. Dude. Look how magnificent, how big.
I'll be honest.
That shows to me we have a problem.
Yeah, we do.
I'd rather see those not run down, but we need to have less of them, because if we had less of them and if they weren't so beautiful in these immaculate $200 million hospitals, I would go, oh, we actually have a healthy society. Yeah, because there's not so many of them.
That's that medical industrial complex, bro. It's like they spend so much money on keeping you sick, and
their fear is that we won't be able to employ all these doctors
they won't
and nurses.
Make money. Simple as that.
Great, okay. Yeah. Well, those people can find other occupations. I would rather have a healthier society.
Agreed.
You know what I mean?
Agreed. But we're stuck. This goes back. I'd rather have a society that doesn't praise these celebrities who are just entertaining us. But at the end of the day, you have to control what you can and accept what you can't. And that's why with my Crohn's, I had to accept that the medical industrial complex isn't going to change anytime soon. So what do I have to do? What do I have to control? What do I have to do? I have to go out of my comfort zone and not just take this information at face value. I have to be willing to take my life into my own hands.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing from people educating themselves versus just being entertained. You are going to be inundated with the temptation of just being entertained.
Right.
But are you going to control what you can? Because you can't control that these powers that be are going to want you to view and want you to experience life in a certain way of keeping you a sheep. But what can you control? Being aware of that, getting out of your comfort zone to then go and actually choose for yourself how you're going to be inundated with information.
To go back on what I was saying, that goes with it. Yep. It's the fact of, I thought, discussing with my buddy Chris, and he even told me, he's like, not everyone's a machinist to be able to consume all this stuff. And he's right, because when I did first get into project management work back in 2022, I was like, holy shit, I was so out of the loop for years. And I would try to go home. I would try to digest some of it. Luckily I work out, I ride, I work on my house a lot, stuff like that. So I have time to throw in earbuds. But most people are not doing this.
After a long day of work and you have kids and you've got responsibilities, you got to take them to this practice, that practice. There's no time for people in their mind to indulge in in education.
Right.
And that's why I believe it's a perceptual shift. I am quite literally entertained by listening to two doctors debate the efficacy of fat metabolism versus carb metabolism.
Right.
And so I've shifted my perspective on how I'm digesting entertainment through the lens of something that's more educative and educational. And I think that's the issue, is the expectation that people have of what they need to decompress with. It's like, after a long day, I ain't trying to listen to nobody debate or lecture me. I'm trying to watch something mindless. And it's like, I get that. I totally get that. But if you're not going to find the time when you have time, you're going to have to make time. Otherwise, you're at the behest of the people that are controlling the information you're digesting.
Right. And you're going to pay for it later on in life.
Through your ignorance.
Yeah. Or even find things like this. We may not be explaining every single thing in these debates or these long form podcasts with these doctors, but even us talking right now, just two normal ass dudes, we could literally give you a foundation, okay, to start building off of. And then once it's like working out, just go for 3 months. Tell yourself 3 months, build that foundation, okay? And then on top of that, you can start, doing more. Start out 3 days a week, 2 days a week, whatever it may be. Get yourself in that rhythm and then start building.
I think the key word for people is going to be intention. They just have to be intentional with their behaviors.
Or change your fucking group setting. You know what I mean? Like there was a thing that my father always told me when I was growing up. You hang out with a certain crowd, that's what you're going to be labeled as. And I used to think he was, an idiot for saying this all the time. Like, what are you talking about? I'm me, blah, blah, blah. I don't care about what other people think. But no, there is merit to that, because, you show me, 5 people and 4 of them are doctors. What am I going to assume the fifth one is? Or if you put yourself in these settings, it's going to push you to want to be, like the group that you're in. Yeah, it's good. Like when I was an idiot in high school and I hung around the wrong crowds, they weren't all bad people, but we were making a lot of mistakes. We were doing a lot of bad shit, and when you do that for so long and you're building off of your young brain, your young foundation off of that. What is that going to lead to ultimately when you get older? I've got friends in jail. I've got friends that are dead. I've got friends that are hooked on drugs. Like, from all the things that we thought as teenagers, that it wasn't going to be a big deal. We're fine. They're wrong. We're right. But now that I'm older and I'm able to switch up my entire environment, and unfortunately I did have to let some friends go or moderate my time with them, not because I don't like them, not because I think they're bad people, just because me and you are not getting what I deem as beneficial to our lives from one another. So unfortunately, I got to moderate that, and I got to go surround myself around people like you, people like Dom, people like the people at my jiu-jitsu gym or the gym itself. You have to look at that as like, oh, if I just moderate this over here and go to this larger base that has they're looking for more healthier type of lifestyle, more beneficial for them. I want that as well. So let me make sure a lot of my time is around them. That's when you start to see the benefits. But if you don't figure that out and you're still hanging out with, these 3 people that are constantly just drinking on Fridays and Saturdays, and then Sundays you're recovering, and then Monday through Friday you're working, so you're not doing shit during the week. What do you expect to come out of that? Like, you have to literally, when you are that unhealthy, you think it's normal. You think these people are dumb for what they're saying. You think they're just trying to act as if we are holier than thou. No, these people are trying to save you, and you're too used to this, which I get, because I was in that. We've talked about this in my 20s. I was not who I am today in my 20s. I was a piece of shit. I did have a lot of emotional and issues, and I was overweight and agitated and all these things. My hormone imbalances were all jacked, and it took a long time for me to finally figure out, like, these are the things you have to do. But nowadays with podcasting and these conversations, you can make that switch a lot faster, man. You can
curate that environment that's better for you.
Go to Combat Cardio. Yeah. Go to Healy and Gracie. Go to whatever gym that is near you that you think that you can start building off of. But the biggest thing, and this is why I harp so much on your gym, is that you're not only going to go in there for a workout, you're going to get the education behind it as well. Because without the education, I can go lift these weights that are in my gym, but if I don't know what I'm doing, and I also don't know what to do for the other 23 hours of the day, you're not going to get results. And then you're going to blame it on, just like you said in the book, genes and whatever other excuse it may be, when it's just you don't have the people around you to be able to steer you in the right direction.
Show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Exactly.
A genius has said that before. And I'm a firm believer of that environment. And that's why earlier I was saying the word intention is so crucial. You have to be intentional about auditing your life, analyzing where you currently are, and seeing if that is conducive to put you on the path to where you want to be. And man, I can't express enough how the community, especially like you said at Combat Cardio, the community that I try to build and that we have built, today is a year to the day, bro. A year to the day we opened last year, November 2nd. That
time flies, dude.
Time flies, bro. And the community we've built already at Combat Cardio, multiple, I'm talking two handful worth of people. Multiple people are having such a drastic shift in their life standard that they've lost 30 pounds plus. I have so many members that have lost 30 pounds. Like, that is like the baseline number on average.
That's a lot of weight.
A lot of weight, dude. Let alone when you're adding muscle to that. Let alone when you're getting the mental and emotional decompression of being able to punch and kick stuff out and being around people that are also working as hard as you are towards the same goal of just trying to be better.
Yeah. Fine. You got to get over the embarrassment. Oh, I don't want to go in there. I'm going to be embarrassed. Fuck that, dude. Go in there, make your life better. And another big thing too is, man, like when they go into like a gym like yours, dude, you're going to have fun. You're going to actually be working out, and there's weights there. There's sleds. There's a video of me on there, dude. I mean, I feel like I'm in pretty decent shape, and it kicked my ass, and, even myself, I need to get up there a little more too.
Hey,
I know.
Your words,
I
bro.
know.
We literally, Combat Cardio sponsors the podcast.
I know, dude. I need to. Hey, but that doesn't mean I'm not working out. That 100%. Means I'm still.
You're at least doing something, which is why I've never really harped on you either, because, bro, the jiu-jitsu environment you're in and of itself gives you that same sort of communal, that same sort of disciplined communal environment that I'm at least glad you're getting it somewhere.
Right.
If you weren't even going to something like that, I'd probably harp on it more to get to Combat Cardio.
And it would have been deserved. And those people that I just seen Danny yesterday at Texas Roadhouse, and I love that dude. He's such a good guy. And he, he's even said too, it's like without like how upfront you are and how like you're straight to the point, and you're going to be harsh about what you say to people, or may come off as harsh, but it's more just truth, and truth hurts sometimes.
Truth hurts.
Medicine doesn't always taste good. These are things that are needed. And even from a guy like Danny, from when I first seen your first podcast with him, and kind of how timid and insecure, and he'll say all this too. He's talked about it on the podcast. Like, to see where he is now, like even when I was talking to him at Texas Roadhouse, confident, eye to eye, you know, head high, you know, very open conversation. Like it's great, man.
The growth is palpable.
Yeah.
And that to me, there is no price tag you can put on seeing somebody's life change in such a way that they're almost a new human as a result of the hard work they've put in.
Right. It really is, man. And you harped on it, like when you said about the jiu-jitsu community that I'm in, it's like, I always thought you could have the lone wolf mentality. I always thought you could, you know, like these guys out here that are talking about grinding 24/7 on YouTube, and you don't need anybody and you can do it on your own. You're just too lazy and blah, blah. Yeah, I kind of look at that as bullshit, man. You know,
They're compensating. They're compensating for not having a community.
Everybody needs somebody.
As humans, we are communal creatures. We need a community. And in a day and age where back in the day, think about it, the Bible says that you need to essentially be kind to thy neighbor, but that's under the presupposition that you know your neighbor. How many people even know their neighbors nowadays?
Yeah, they don't, you know, and it's sad, and I think honestly it's engineered, you know, by who we call leaders.
Powers that be,
Yeah, you keep people separated, you keep people unhealthy. That's more money, because I can tell you this right now, guys. Those people that you look up to and worship all the time on TV, they're not eating what you're eating. They're not doing the routines you're doing. This is all on the lower, what they look at the lower class, okay? And you know, whether or not you want to believe it or not, hey, don't believe me, you know, you'll have to face the consequences at some point. You thinking that cancer is just normal, or all these other autoimmune diseases are just normal. I'm just getting old. How many times do I hear people, I'm in my 30s now, man. It's just not, you're fucking 30,
I have an 87-year-old client in my gym who has expressed how just his ability to sleep with his shoes off has changed.
Yeah.
This dude was going to bed every night with his shoes on because of the neuropathy in his feet. I started fixing his posture, fixing his food, and fixing the way he moved. I have videos of me I'm physically moving his shoulders, and I'm helping him walk while I have a ruptured Achilles. I'm helping this man walk better at 87 to the point where he has expressed, just by the walking and the moving better, just by the subtle food changes, and just by the small things I've been implementing when I'm around you training with you, Mitch, I'm able to sleep comfortably at night to the point where not only are his shoes off, he's able to walk around his house without his shoes on. That's a huge deal for somebody.
Oh, for
sure. Who, especially from the pain standpoint, the shoes were giving him compression and comfort. He's now able to live pain-free in a way that he wasn't able to before at 87 years old.
That's wild, dude.
Insane.
But it's just taking the information and the guidance that you're giving them and actually implementing it. Like you were always giving me shit about the L4, L5 bulging disc I deal with, and you kept saying, dude, I've already fucking told you how to do this, how to fix this. And you were even showed on the podcast the pelvic tilting that a lot of people deal with, especially people in the office. You know, this is why I'm a big believer in either one, standing up and doing the exercises that you've discussed, or also two, get you a standing desk. They're actually not too expensive. I actually like them a lot, because it's just not good to sit in this position 8 hours, 10 hours a day. It's insane.
That's a whole nother conversation.
And then also sticking to PT routines. I finally stuck with my PT that I created. And dude, you guys have access to AI. You guys have access to the internet. You guys have access to guys like you. You know, you can build these PT programs and then stick to the maintenance routines afterwards. And I feel great, man.
Dude, yeah,
I feel a lot better.
You're the embodiment every time we talk of the awareness, and that's the biggest thing, the awareness.
But you know that I'm not, you do, but what I like is when I'm explaining it to people is that, like, it's not that, and you can attest to it too, it's not that Gabriel just takes in the information right away. I'm just like everyone else. I listen to you, I fuck off for a while, or I don't, or I think I know what I'm doing, and then I pay the price. And I have to do that a couple times to finally I go, I can't deal with this pain anymore. It is literally hindering training, working out, my mood. I don't know how people deal with bulging discs and don't do anything about them other than taking some sort of pill, prednisone or whatever it may be dude, that is not permanent. That is a temporary relief. Or going to the chiropractor and thinking that's just fixing it. No, these are temporary reliefs. To actually heal it, it will heal to heal it altogether will help so many other things that you're not even thinking of. Like I said, mood. I mean, dude, when my back is out, my mood is off.
How could it not be?
Agitated.
How could it not be?
Yeah, I know.
You got to be pissed off if you're in pain.
Dude, and it's the worst. Like, I mean, I've even looked it up to, it's comparable to pregnancy, you know, like that is the pain level. And that's not only lower back, that's other things too that people are, sciatica, people when they're having issues in their gut. These things suck, man.
Dude, like, I have, Dom knows, we have a member who literally drives 50 minutes to come to the gym every time she comes. 50 minutes to the gym, 50 minutes back. And at first, there was a limitation in the help I could actually facilitate other than a good workout environment. A lot of it stemmed from really educating her on the nutritional side and the consistency of the protocols that if she would follow, it would get her the results she wanted. I hadn't seen, when I ruptured my Achilles, I was out of the gym for a couple months, and I ain't seen her in a couple months. She doubled down on a lot of the things that I had been instilling into her when I was gone, like when she was out of the gym, or when I was out of the gym. She has lost over 30 pounds, and she hasn't been under 200 pounds since she was in 8th grade.
Damn.
And so for her, at like 22, 23, to have such a life shift at that age, at 22, 23, instead of waiting until she's 30 or 40, gives me again the reassurance of, it's really not about me telling you, it's not about Ben Bickman telling you, it's not about any of these experts telling you. It's about you caring enough, being intentional enough to want to make the change, and hopefully you can make that decision before it's too late.
Right.
And that's where it's so crucial to educate people before the sickness happens, so you can prevent ever being in that position by at least doing the bare minimum of what it means to prevent those things. And it's eating right, moving right, and finding that community.
Yeah, if you look good, you feel good. There's something to that, man. 100%. And I think a lot of people, and a lot of times what I see it in is relationships, oh, why do I have to look good? I'm already married. It's like, what are you talking about? Like if you continue to think that way, not only do you, because I'm a big believer in you owe your spouse or your boyfriend or girlfriend, whatever it may be, your best self. That's how they met you. I mean, maybe they didn't meet you like that, whatever it may be, but you shouldn't go just, oh, well, I'm with somebody now I can go on the decline. Because not only is that messed up physically, of what you're doing to yourself, but inside. So now what? You're just going to dump a bunch of hospital bills on your family. You're going to dump a bunch of medication prescriptions that you have to fill.
Debt when you die as a result of those things.
Debt when you die, I live for my kids. We've talked about this many times. I'll die for my kids or whatever.
I'll die for my kids.
Yeah, why don't you live?
Why don't you live for them?
Yeah.
Man, you're either going to invest in your health now or invest in your sickness later.
Yeah, it's crazy, dude. And I think to go back to your book, man, I was going to ask you something. A buddy of mine, AD, is a big believer in blood work. Okay. You can tell a lot from your blood work. And I think that's one issue that I've always had. You just think blood work, you don't think that a majority of what you can read from your body can be read through blood, So you don't put those two together. But like even here in the book, a simple blood test called high sensitivity CRP, which is C-reactive proteins, predicts heart disease risk better than cholesterol. So if you were to give any type of advice, I do mine online. I have an online, I think I pay like $85. It's not much. I go to my nearest Quest. I get my blood work done. They send you an email and they break it all out for you. And which is cool is they'll explain it to you what each one means, which is nice. Or you can go sign up at your gym and you'll probably break it down for them. You know what I mean?
People's blood work all the time.
There you go. Yeah. So doing that, I think is a good start. Is that what you believe too?
100%. That's why in that book, I have specific tests, specific variables that you can ask your doctor to measure, like your C-reactive protein. A big one is your fasted insulin levels. So a lot of the information that can actually be more predictive, like your CRP, your fasted insulin, you have to request these a lot of the time. And if you don't request them, they can make conclusions based off of like your fasted glucose even. But there are way better indicators, things like CRP, things like fasted insulin, that are actually going to give a different story than the superficial cheap tests. And because you have to request those, unless you're educated enough to request those, you're never going to know what exactly is supposed to be audited, what is supposed to be measured in your blood panel. So you just take at face value whatever they're giving you. I was in the hospital and asked them for my testosterone, for my CRP, for my fasted insulin. I asked them for all of that. And they said, well, we'll have to ask the doctor. And they never got back to me.
Wow.
And they never actually tested those things for me. So I wasn't able to get those when I was already getting my blood drawn in the hospital.
What's that test that costs like $5,000? I've heard Rogan talk about it a lot. It can actually warn you of cancers and whatever other things that you may face when you get older.
I'm not sure.
It was like a $5,000 test.
I'm not sure.
RFK talked about it.
Okay.
But I'll have to, but
that's proof in the pudding that these tests that are actually effective are inaccessible to most people.
I know, and that's what sucks. But all I can say is that, like, yes, I haven't got one either. But if I tell myself all the time, you can go spend this amount of money on this, but because you think that material item or that vacation or that whatever that is more important, rather than you really realizing you've only got one life. Mm-hmm. You don't know what the hell is coming up next in the next coming years, but there is something out there that is not as obtainable, that does cost as much as these things, but yet you look lower on that.
Well, I'll give you a good example. People will come into my gym talking about, why would I spend $100 a month here when I could spend $10 at Planet Fitness? And it's like, okay.
Yeah. The same Planet Fitness that tried to hand me candy.
And pizza on Wednesdays or whatever. Yeah. And so it goes back to, though, the actual value of investing in your health now versus investing in your sickness later.
Right.
And that always, no matter what, and this is the hardest part for a lot of people to understand, it's premised and presupposed by your need for instant gratification. You want to be gratified immediately.
Right.
And if you don't address that as the root cause, you will always fall into what's the most convenient. And so what I try to do with people all the time is I just try to tell them, look, if you were to go get your blood tested, you should, and if they do charge for a little bit more of certain tests, you should at least understand the importance of that investment. Invest in your health now so you don't invest in your sickness later, versus ignoring that cost because at the moment it doesn't seem as convenient. Mitch, I would rather spend $100 a month on going out, getting drinks, standing around with my boys, and talking about going and talking to girls. Talking about going and talking to girls. And at the end of the night, I'm going to end up back at my place or back at your place, super drunk, super hungover, in a vicious cycle of just repeating degeneracy.
No girl.
With no girl. Yeah. Whereas you invest instead that $100 a month working on yourself in an environment that just really doesn't exist. A place like CCKC, a place like Combat Cardio, where you are then actually investing in the better version of you that's actually more qualified if and when you come across that potential girl or potential partner. So you're now actually ready to go and talk to them and address them in terms of actually courting and approaching them.
Look at it this way. I have a Planet Fitness membership, and I've had one for a very long time. Go look at the people that are behind the counter. All right, that'll tell you. You can go look at people at Combat Cardio. There's a big difference, dude. Yeah. And if you are going to go get that Planet Fitness membership, that's fine. If you want to save, if maybe hours don't match up with yours or whatever it may be, it's closer, blah, blah. You still do stuff online, don't you?
100%.
So use the rest of that, whatever would have been $100, and hire you as the guidance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't get that. And if you find people like you, I'm not even just saying you, but you happen to be here in Kansas City. I'm hoping people from Kansas City are watching this. I don't know how many of the guys out there are like you that are giving this information that you can go and pay to have this knowledge. I don't know, but I know you.
Yeah,
so
a lot of people hide this information. They gatekeep it for profit. If I just cared about making money, I would have never opened Combat Cardio because I can charge a way higher fee, a way higher ticket fee for executives, which is what I did for the longest. And most people can't afford that. And that's not sustainable for the actual population, let alone the community.
Right.
And for me, it's about being able to provide enough of a qualified service to as many people as possible without watering down that service itself.
Yeah, I like that you think that way, dude, because I tell people this all the time. Barbers being one of them, you know. Just like you got all these barbers out that are making like $100 a fucking cut, you know. How is that sustainable?
Right.
I'm not one to tell you what to charge, you know, libertarian. You do whatever you want. But my thing is that what about the like, wouldn't you rather maybe drop your price and have longevity and have a huge clientele? Because most people are making, and not trying to, it's the I want to have all this shit. And I get it. Nice things are great. But in the end, what do you die with? None of that shit. And that's why I appreciate you the most on that, dude, because it's like, you're thinking past all the, I could charge this and I could have this huge house. I could have this car. I could have whatever it may be. You can still have nice stuff without having to almost sell your soul for it, in a sense.
Agreed, bro. That's why I still drive a 2006 Toyota RAV4.
That's why I have a 2004 F-150 still sitting out there that I've had for 13 years. You know, it's like, you know, I think memories and communities is what I'm going to end up, like, when I lay on my deathbed, I'm hoping that's surrounding me. Not the, you know, dude, I love nice stuff. I'd love to have a big, beautiful F-250 out there, you know, diesel.
Or whatever
you know, like, I'd love to have a $100,000 truck out there. But, you know, I'm not going to sell myself to obtain that. 100%. It's just not worth it, man. The other ones I've seen on here, and what I wanted to harp on too, is that, you know, I'm going to finish this book. I hope others pick this up as well. Where is this going to be available at? Same places?
Yep, Barnes & Nobles, Amazon. I'll have a bunch of copies on hand myself, so people like at the gym.
Pick them up at the gym? Yeah, really.
But more importantly, for anybody that's watching, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, any major distributor.
Yeah, and that's another thing that we've talked about too, to go back on if you're going to have the membership here, also use you, because you do offer, I'm sure, your online services, stuff like that. But like you said, to sell it best, if you're in the Gladstone area, you're within a 20-mile radius, just sign up for Combat Cardio, save yourself the membership at wherever you're at, and then you not only get the gym, but you also get the guidance as well, which I think don't you have like PDF pamphlets and stuff like that?
Every member essentially gets all of the information that I try to give to people who would just read the book. And you get a certified nutritionist, you get a certified personal trainer, and a gym where you can do everything you need in terms of being healthy from a movement standpoint. But to have all three of those as a one-stop shop, they just don't exist.
Yeah, go into a gym and ask them about that.
See how much it costs.
Yeah, let me know if they even help you out with that. Right. But like, there are the other one too is that higher levels of IL-6, another inflammatory signal, are linked to faster memory loss and cognitive decline. See, this is the shit where, and I get it, I have, you know, some memory loss as well, more of probably getting hit in the head.
CTE.
Yeah. And all the dumb shit, you know, playing football my whole life, getting punched in the head and shit. But like, even here, like, these are things that we just say we're getting old, but really it's not.
There's measurable variables, like what I try to list in the book, that if you are aware enough of them, though it may seem like scientific jargon, which is also why I try to balance out I'll even say after I list a bunch of scientific words, I'm like, listen, I know this sounds crazy, but if you at least are aware of these things and you talk to your doctor about these things, you'll be more prepared to actually be in control of your health.
Yeah. Also, TNF alpha, a potent inflammatory protein, makes which you put in parentheses here, an arsonist, makes your body less sensitive to insulin, a key step towards diabetes, which we know is rampant.
Insulin resistance is the biggest issue with people. And if anything, and I love the fact that you like have anecdotes to pull out from the book. I love that, bro.
Yeah. Well, in all my books, you know, well, not all of them, but yeah, I notate. I usually highlight, or I've been learning the little tip of folding the pages. Yeah. Who's that Stoic guy? Ryan Hall or Ryan something? He was on Rogan. You know who I'm talking about. You've seen his shit. Stoic. Yeah, Daily Stoic. Yeah. Well, he's talked about like how he writes books. He's a big flashcard guy. So he has like thousands of flashcards. Yeah, I know. But dude, my thing is like, I'm trying to learn how to be able to retain the info. We've had this discussion. You and my brother were giving me tips on that because I've read a lot of those books.
But have you retained?
But if you're asking me about them, I'm like, damn, I don't know. That was a year ago. I don't really remember. Even that Healthy Made Easy. I read that book. I think I read it actually twice. And it's still, I'm trying to develop better ways of how to retain. And the only way I can think of is noting pages, highlighting, so that way sometimes I can go back and reference key information.
It's repetition, bro.
Because you don't need to know the entire book, but you need to know what is beneficial to you. That's what I'm starting to learn.
I think, yeah. So for you, you're talking about really It's about reading, It's about reading, retaining, repeating. Reading, retaining, repeating. So you read, you retain some, but you have to repeat that by reading again to retain more, and then you have to repeat that. And that is how when you talk about like how do you know XYZ? How do you remember all this stuff? It's like, well, I do exactly what you're talking about to such a degree that if it's actually of value to me, it's something I can retain. But I think more important than that is even if you only read something through once or you watch something through once, if you don't retain all of it, if you at least have a perception shift from the value of the information, that perception shift in and of itself, irrespective of if you retain everything, is as valuable as the retention, in my opinion.
Dude, I'm going to read one more off, too. This one's going to be a little lengthy, but I'd like for people to hear this. I hope I say this name right. Robert Lustig, the pediatric endocrinologist, famous for calling sugar the most accessible, most socially acceptable, and the most readily available drug, explains that the problem isn't just the calories, it's the hormonal and metabolic chaos sugar creates. When we consume fructose, especially in industrial amounts found in sodas, juices, and processed foods, it bypasses the body's normal, satiety signaling? What is it? Satiety signaling slams the liver and gets converted into fat, similar to alcohol, in a way that drives insulin resistance and inflammation. And what are the two I feel like most overconsumed things are, dude? Alcohol and sugar. Sugar might be in alcohol, isn't it? Or no?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, alcohol when it breaks down to ethanol and fruit and sugar when it breaks down to fructose are two different things that eventually do the same thing in the liver.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's why a lot of kids are having non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Why don't they just call it fatty liver disease? Well, it's non-alcoholic because the only people that got fatty liver disease back in the day were alcoholics. So why are these kids getting fatty liver disease? Well, it's from sugar, so they call it non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Yeah, and it's like 50, I think close to 50% of kids are getting that.
And it's more than desserts or sodas. Bread, pasta, crackers, quote unquote healthy, granola bars, sports drinks, quick protein shakes, etc. All of these are quick burning fuels that cause a rapid rise in blood glucose. That spike triggers a big insulin release, and insulin's job is to move glucose into cells and I'm gonna sound like an idiot here. Subcutaneously. To store unused energy. Chronically high insulin doesn't just store fat, it changes the body's entire hormonal climate, keeping inflammatory process switched on like oxygen feeding a flame. I mean, if that isn't a wake-up call, dude.
And again, it's educating it through a lens of real groundedness, but also through the backed justification, the supporting jurisdiction of the actual science. So, like, for example, let's just talk a little bit about insulin resistance.
Yeah.
The book is about what? It's about taming modern disease. It's about healing modern disease by taming chronic inflammation. And if you can just the gist of that, if you can heal modern disease by taming chronic inflammation, the question then becomes, what's causing the inflammation? What are you actually taming?
Right.
We could go back. So Earth is about what? I mean, I'd be curious what Adriana believes on this. Earth is how old?
Let's phone him in.
Yeah. Earth is how old? 5,000 years old. So Earth is, let's just say, 5 billion years old, 4.7 billion years old. Life has been around for about I think it's like 3.7, something like that. Maybe it's just 3 billion years. Mm-hmm. And life started out as anaerobic bacteria, essentially. And when I say anaerobic, there's two ways to think about it. You've got anaerobic versus aerobic. Anaerobic means you don't need oxygen. Aerobic means you need oxygen. So anaerobic lifting is what people think about when they like do lifts versus aerobic exercise, which is like doing like cardio and stuff. Mm-hmm. But from a microbiology standpoint, life started out from an anaerobic perspective, not needing oxygen, because there wasn't oxygen on Earth at the time. There wasn't oxygen, let alone in the quantities that we inevitably had it around 2.4 billion years ago. So around 2.4 billion years ago, these numbers might be off a little bit, you had what was known as the Great Oxygenated Event. So oxygen started being populated on Earth. And once oxygen became a variable, these anaerobic life forms, these bacteria, started developing the ability to use oxygen as a better form of energy. So now we can get into actual metabolism once we understand at least how we kind of got there. When you have life, fundamentally, you can essentially utilize sugar or fatty acids as your form of energy. Most of life in the early stages started off only using sugar, namely through like photosynthesis. Once animals, namely eukaryotic cells, started having mitochondria, they were able to use oxygen in a more effective form than just carb or sugar, really glucose metabolism without the oxygen. So you have sugar without oxygen, and then you can use sugar with oxygen. It's the best way to think about it, but it's not really sugar, it's a different form of energy. What happened once millions, billions of years goes by, all of life starts going, why would I operate off a less effective form of energy if I have access to something like oxygen to give me a more effective form of energy? So what you had is you had the transition from glucose metabolism to what's known as beta oxidation through what's known as lipolytic metabolism, which is fat metabolism. And I know this is getting into the weeds, but this is important. 95 to 99% of all animals on Earth operate off of beta oxidation off of fat metabolism. The only animals that don't are going to be like your gut microbiota, so bacteria, and like some worms. Those are the only animals that operate off of not really needing oxygen to produce energy. To such a degree that amphibians and some fish, namely like deep sea fish that don't have access to light, they'll operate off of essentially being dormant when they're not moving at all. Think of like alligators or frogs. When they're not moving at all, they're able to operate off of a more sustainable long form of energy, which is going to be fat metabolism. But only when they need immediate energy are they tapping into their glucose, non-oxygen based ways of metabolizing energy to where they're able to actually produce spurts of rapid energy production. So for humans and for all animals, you just have to think about it like this. After we evolved through all of that, there came to a point where you're either going to have long sustainable energy through the use of oxygen or immediate rapid energy through the use of non-oxygen through just glucose, through just sugar. If you get to a point where food is so abundant and that food source is higher dense in sugar and in carbs, your body never has the chance to actually metabolize food from that aerobic standpoint, from that lipolytic standpoint. So you're only ever storing fat and storing energy. You're never really burning it because you always have food readily available and food that's abundant. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't until really the 20th century, the early 1900s, where we had food so readily available that we started shutting off the very pathway that we've operated from for millions of years, if not, let's just say tens of thousands of years. Mm-hmm. And once that pathway is shut off, your fat burning pathway, what is now only being activated? That anaerobic fat storage pathway. And so most people throughout all of human history were able to essentially have their cake and eat it too because they weren't eating that much cake. But we're eating so much cake, proverbially speaking, sugar and carbs, that we store so much of this energy and never burn it that it causes our body to become super sick. And that's where insulin resistance comes in, diabetes comes in, Alzheimer's comes in, cardiovascular disease comes in. All of these sicknesses come in as a result of us deviating from our natural biological process of producing energy. And it's not just us. It's the majority of all animals other than worms and bacteria. And that goes into glycogen storage. It goes into our bodies being able to store 100,000 kcals of calories with regards to being able to store it as fat versus only about 2,000 kcals of carbs in the form of glycogen. Which pathway do you think your body was meant to operate from? Probably the one that can store the energy the longest, which is that fat burning pathway. But we have been inundated with operating off of the carb burning pathway, thinking that that's the most optimal, when deep down, all it's doing is adding more fat to our body that we're never using. And that's how people get super sick.
Because, literally what it breaks down to is let's not try to think that we know better than how we've been living for the last millions of years. Okay. Literally. And if this is how our bodies are supposed to be, and this is how we're supposed to live, don't think because of now, because, we have more technology and we have this and that and more medical advancements, to think that the nutrition that you're being sold on, the food pyramid that you've been indoctrinated to believing is real, mm-hmm. is more factual than the millions of years that we know You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of evidence and you know.
It's so what it boils down to is this. For millions of years, animals have operated from a certain way of producing energy. Simplest way to think about it. And only recently, really when we started farming, it started kind of turning.
Yeah.
But we were
because you no longer had to move.
Agreed.
Yeah.
You no longer had to move. But we weren't producing food in enough surplus like we started to in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And because only in the last 150 years, we've had such an industrial access and such an industrial surplus of food and such an access to also foods that have been tainted in such a way through the industrialization process, only then have we started noticing the rise of a lot of these diseases. And so when I'm trying to help people understand how to reverse a lot of those chronic diseases, it starts first with understanding the baseline way in which our body's supposed to operate. And when you can understand that, you can then understand how that's been flipped on its head. Once you understand how that's been flipped on its head, you can then unflip what has been done in the last 150 years. And the best way to get people to understand how their chronic pain and how their chronic illnesses and how they're feeling like they're aging and how their energy levels are decreasing, how all of those have come to the forefront, it's really been a result of poor nutritional standards that have been sold to you as something that's actually good for you. But if all these things were actually good for us, why has there been such an increase in all of these diseases and all of these problems that never existed before the 1900s?
Exactly. Yeah, because you can't just look at it as like, well, we live in the most advanced times, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, we also live in the most unhealthiest.
Exactly.
Too, you know, and a lot of this, I think, just correlates back to money. That's really what it is. We've talked about this on other podcasts. Yeah, we talk about these corporations. We talk about the Paul Morrisons. You know, we've talked about what these people
Philip Morris.
Or Philip, was it Philip Morris? Sorry.
Maybe a Paul Morrison is something Philip.
maybe. But like we see these big, you know, corporations buying into all these, you know, these smaller companies. And, you know, it's just, it's all to the normal corporate motto: build cheaper, you know, build faster, profit more. You know, that's really what it comes down to.
And that's go full circle to what we talked about earlier. It's about controlling what you can and accepting what you can't. You have to almost accept that there's going to be this corporate greed and this profit and pleasure over purpose and principle. There's always going to be this profit and pleasure over purpose and principle by the powers that be when disseminating information as to what's good for the population.
Yeah.
And if you just buy into that, you're at the behest of somebody else puppeteering the rest of your life and the outcomes of your life. But if you say, you know what, I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to move in a way with more intention of really choosing for myself what I'm going to do with my life. That's what I did with the whole Crohn's experience. I'm not just going to be at the behest of these doctors telling me I need to go on medicine and I'm screwed if I don't.
Right.
I'm going to be willing to take the risk, and that requires courage. It requires courage going on your own merit and making decisions for yourself.
Uncomfortability.
Uncomfortability and accountability. Because if you're wrong, you have no one else to blame but yourself. But if you're just listening to the powers that be, if you get sick, you at least have a scapegoat to blame the predicament that you're in that isn't you. Well, I didn't know better. Well, they've been telling me for years. Yeah, that's you outsourcing your responsibility and your accountability and really being able to dictate the outcomes of your life. And yes, it does take a little bit of courage and accountability, which is a little scary at first when jumping in and taking into account for your life. But if you don't start making intentional decisions, don't be surprised if you end up where these people want you to be and you don't end up where you want to be.
Yeah, and in the same sense, it's like, yes, we live in maybe the most advanced of times, so then use that advancement, use that technology, because unlike the people from the 50s and the 60s, we have access to this information now. And I am a big believer on when you've been unhealthy for so long, it's hard to pull the blinders up. For sure. I totally get that, because I remember when I was very unhealthy, I remember how I thought, I remember how I looked at people. We've talked about this, but you got to get rid of that. You got to somehow, like you said, pull yourself back, Start with one video on YouTube or whatever it may be. Start with one book.
Start with the things you can control.
Start with the things you can control and develop off that. We're not saying go full in 100% on day one. Would that be nice? Yes. And if you can do that, shoot for it. But we're realistic. We know this takes time. We know this is gradually. It's little by little doing these things to where one point you'll look back 5 years from now and you'll be a completely different human being. You got to stop blaming, I still have baby fat. That's nonsense. You got to stop just blaming, I have a messed up thyroid. You got to stop blaming, well, it's my parents' fault. You got to stop blaming, well, I'm just kind of a hefty person. No, this is all bullshit, you know? And once you start being truthful to yourself, once you start taking accountability, then change will happen after that.
I tell everybody all the time, the AI we should be worried about is not artificial intelligence. The AI we should be worried about is accountability and integrity.
Mm-hmm. No, I completely agree.
Because if you don't have either of those two things, you're not going to be intentional in your decision making, and then you won't take into account the responsibility you have to make your life whatever you want it to be.
I think the thing is too is that, and Dom, can you do me a favor? Can you go at the beginning of this video? I want to see where Mitch, when he first sits down, because I want people to grasp that and look at you now and look at you where you were and what they will have to deal with as well. Because even a person who was very fit, if they look at your Instagram videos, you were a very fit dude. And hold on one second, pause that for me. And how it even got to you. Okay. And I think the biggest problem is that people will see in their family, well, you know, Roy is, 330 pounds and he's still kicking. He's 55, whatever it may be. He's fine. How fine is he?
Right.
Do you really know what he deals with behind closed doors?
Man.
Do you know all the underlining issues that he has that he just doesn't talk about, that he's just found normalization in?
Right. I got to take a laxative every day just to shit. It's like, that's not normal.
Yeah. Or I got to take this pill and this pill, or I have high blood pressure. Or the amount of people who tell me they just have high blood pressure and that it's just something, well, yeah, I got it from my grandma. It's like, what? What are you talking about? And I got people that are close to me that are from the medical field that say the same shit. Well, his mother has high blood pressure, or his father had. He's passed down.
And
being
genetically predisposed and having predispositions isn't something to put to the wayside. If anything, it's a very valuable indicator of why what you need to do in terms of approaching your health more intentionally is so important.
Right.
Because if you know your parent or your uncle or your grandparent died of a certain disease or disorder, for example, with me and my Crohn's, my grandfather died of colon cancer. His brother died of stomach cancer. So knowing that there's this history of, specifically when we talk about colon cancer, when I start researching about, well, does red meat actually cause colon cancer? Because if it does,
I remember when that was a big thing.
I have to be aware of, if I'm eating nothing but red meat, am I increasing my risk because I have that familial predisposition for that specific thing that they're trying to correlate to this specific behavior? If eating red meat causes colon cancer, I have a history of colon cancer. I have a family history of colon cancer. I should be very intentional about whether or not I'm right or wrong on then consuming or avoiding that thing.
Is that because your family's genetics don't mesh well with whatever is causing that disease?
Yeah, well, what it really is, it is genetics.
So it can be passed down in a sense, but it's not due to just being you're fucked regardless because it's passed down. It's that this thing is causing this in your genetic makeup.
Yeah,
right?
So the best way to think about it is it's like you have a light switch of genetic potential. And for me, my Crohn's, that light switch of genetic potential was off.
Right.
And a bunch of shitty lifestyle started coming in and caused this downstream effect of hormones, of poor metabolism, energy, to then cause that light switch to turn on.
I've just asked because, like, in Asian culture, rice is huge, okay? Even in Mexican culture, rice is huge.
African cultures, Middle Eastern cultures, every third world.
But you don't see too many overweight Asians. That's my thing.
Right, but you
see a lot of overweight Hispanics.
I know a lot of overweight American Asians.
Right. So then, but what's the difference?
The difference is the industrialized process and the cultural standards that are set in Western worlds versus these other nations.
Oh, I see.
So, like in Asia,
we've talked about that.
Yeah, they're not. They don't have all this sugar and bull. I mean, they do now, but like India is a good example. India, 30, 40, 50 years ago. Yeah, they are super impoverished, a population size that's equal to the United States, somewhere between 350 and 400 million people in in India right now don't have running water or electricity. So imagine if everyone in the U.S. didn't have running water or electricity. There's the same population size in India that is operating under those conditions. Yet somehow they're on the rise of being, I think, number one now in cases of diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And it's not because they're just an impoverished country. It's because the standard of their food, namely from the industrialization process of getting out as much as possible,
is comparable to ours.
Exactly. So
put that into thought.
Yeah,
America the Great.
So yeah, man, I think ultimately, and like you were kind of saying,
can you cue that? I want to
skip it, go like 4 skips on the arrow. Go a little more, then right here start playing.
All right, yeah. Switch over to the camera, please.
150 pounds.
Can they see this, Dom?
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not even the same who I'm looking at now. You know what I mean?
Look at that dude.
Yeah.
To that dude.
That's fucking crazy, bro.
Yoked, full, swole. Now look, the same shirt.
I'm a fan of haircut, Mitch.
Everybody is. This is maniacal maniac Mitch, mad scientist. Let's go ahead and pause it, Dom. But yeah, you can see clearly. I mean, bro, when I'm in that state, you know how hard it is.
How did you feel, dude? I mean, the way you described it in here was kind of neat because, like, it sucked for you for sure. But like, to be able to put myself in your shoes, and because we've had conversations, but reading it is different.
Let me ask you,
it's almost in an intimate, because it's like you're in a setting where you're like, I was by myself down here, just kind of hanging out in the gym, stretching, reading. And it's just like, damn.
I was gonna say, I would like to get what was your opinion on the prologue?
I mean, it's sad. It's sad. I couldn't imagine. I mean, just you even saying, I feel a relation with my back. I know they're two different things, but like when I do get a herniated disc like that, it's like how you felt. It's not focusing on anything else but pain. And what can fix that? Like you can't, nothing else matters, dude. Mm-hmm. And to be in that situation, man, which everyone is going to have to at some point if they don't fix themselves and fix their routines, it sucks. It's the most, you don't care about anything else. You don't care about Patrick Mahomes on TV, whatever movie you're watching.
You care about surviving that second.
And every second after that, and finding some sort of relief,
some form of comfort in the chaos of discomfort.
I mean, if anybody's ever had like a stomach ache, a really bad, like I'm sure a lot of people have felt this when you overeat and you have a huge gas bubble inside your stomach that is just like, it's bending you over into like a fetal position and you're just waiting for it to bypass.
Now imagine that for 16 hours straight.
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
I could not imagine, man. It's
weak. Yeah.
It's eye-opening.
Dude, that's why I really wanted to make it a point to describe to the best capacity that I could.
Or describing it in the way from an aerial view of a forest.
Right.
It may just look like smoke, but deep down in the forest, once you're on the ground,
it's hot as shit.
Hot as shit. There's fire everywhere. It's chaos. Mm-hmm. That's your body. From outside, you may only see little signals, but inside, it's collapsing.
Yeah. So that's. And just to kind of get you haven't fully gone through. I think when you get to chapter 8 kind of goes back full circle to the prologue, kind of explaining my experience and then coming out of it. That's why the analogy of the fire, the wildfire, and then becoming fireproof is so crucial. You've got this chronic inflammation in your body that because of shitty standards that have been set before us by experts and people that know what they're doing, we've all gotten sicker. And the sickness comes from this chronic fire, this wild blaze in our body. And if you can learn how to first identify that, you can then start. That's why I use all the fire analogies, the arsonists that cause the flames. I try to use all these analogies for people to really understand that if you can resolve that, you can go back to a certain more sustainable way of living that because you're now fireproof, you're not as affected by the inflammation. And because everybody right now is so chronically inflamed, they have to reset their body. That's what this whole thing, bro, I even have a 12-week workout program in here.
Do you really?
In chapter 7, scroll to chapter 7. In chapter 7, the metabolic muscle as your metabolic armor is going to be, I can't remember what page. Yeah. So I have a whole 12-week strength conditioning program. It's a 3-pronged phase of 4 weeks each to, without any sort of other help other than the book, to give you a blueprint of at least how to do some form of fitness. And so I try to make this so one-stop shop for people that you have the food list of knowing what to eat, what not to eat. You have an exact metabolic reset of how to actually reset your body. Go to chapter 6 real quick. Go to the back of chapter 6 where it talks about the metabolic reset. Yeah, in that area. So you have a timeline and the milestones of how to reset your metabolism, how to get a controlled flame, how to decrease that inflammation in your body. And through this entire protocol that is truly holistic, WHOLISTIC, that is truly holistic, you're able to, with just this book, address how you're chronically inflamed, address how your body's on fire, identify what the catalysts are, start extinguishing those catalysts through the specific protocols I put in place, get to a point where you've reset the flame, and now whenever you experience inflammation, it's nowhere near as severe because you've controlled it through a fireproof nature.
It's got it all. It's got it all. Dude, Mitch, I appreciate you coming on, man, again. We're always very fortunate here when you come on, dude. You're always dropping just huge fucking knowledge for everybody. That book you said is going to be available when?
November 12th.
November 12th.
2 years to the day of when I got sick.
Yeah. So, guys, pick up Fireproof, pick up Healthy Made Easy, and even better, pick up these children's books because I have some. I read them to my kids, and not only, I've said this before, is it cool that they enjoy it, but you also, as an adult, get to see kind of the symbolism and stuff in there as well.
The 4th one's coming out hopefully next month. I've already finished writing the 4th one.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah. The 4th one is the Fun Adventures of Mark and Max. So you got Willie and Abel. You've got to be willing to help people, but also able to help people. You've got Hope and Grace, which is you have to have hope, but you also have to give yourself grace.
Right.
And then you have Chance and Chase, which is take the chance and chase your dreams. Mark and Max is you have to mark your goals and maximize your effort.
That's awesome, dude.
Yeah.
That really is cool. And also, too, for the adults as well, when they're reading these books, don't just push this off to your kids, to be able to make these changes. I see that a lot. I see it at the gym, where these adults will bring their kids in for kids class, but as well not embodying the same practices for themselves.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah, and I understand, there's not enough time. You have to work a lot. I get that. You've got other shit going on, but there's always enough time to do at least a little bit that'll help transform your life.
Intention.
Yeah. And I get that. I have to balance a lot of stuff too. And I deal with this as well. It can be difficult, man, but I like to look at, and I think what most parents, their issue is taking time away from their children. But I think it's more of restructuring to where your time is, at best used with your best self. Okay. So if you love spending this amount of time and you don't want to take away from that because you got this window with your kids, 7 days a week, ask yourself this though, is that time at your best self? What are you doing? Are you just sitting there, watching something with them, or sitting there just observing them? What is actually quality time? The quality versus quantity is the biggest thing I believe that you should start to dissect, because if your quality time is like, oh, why we watch movies every night or play board games instead of going outside to run with them or kick a soccer ball around,
or read a book with them,
whatever it may be, you really need to look at that as like, oh, is it because of me? Like, is it because I'm gassed after 5 minutes of playing with them because I'm 200 pounds overweight? Like, what is it? And if it is that, wouldn't it make more sense to go and actually start implementing these changes first with yourself?
So you can fill their cup later.
Exactly. And they have a hero to look up to
100%.
Because our heroes that we're looking up to, I mean, it's a roll of a dice whether or not it is a positive for them. I mean, look at all the, the guys that these young men look up to, these young boys. A lot of them are not good.
I think the whole Andrew Tate thing is the litmus test for most people. Whenever they talk to me about, you know, my kid, like, he's troubled, XYZ. Every single young man I've had in my office, they really like Andrew Tate.
Yeah, and I've said things about him, too, that I like. That doesn't necessarily mean that I like everything about that individual.
Agreed.
But what about you as a father,
right,
taking some of those things that maybe you've learned from that individual,
right,
but also seeing the bad shit that he's done, too,
right,
by running these weird sex rink thing, you know, webcam things. Like, instead of letting that person, you know,
be
your
the
children
arbiter
worship.
Of inspiration.
Yeah. Take those things from him, embody it into you, the positive things.
And then you be now that actual hero for them.
Exactly.
100%.
And it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
But your kids will see this at some point. Even me. Anybody who's watching this, don't think that my kids are just hero worshiping me. Hell no. Ask my daughter. She's usually annoyed with me half the time. She usually rolls her eyes at me. But I'm setting her up to where I know when she gets older, she's going to look back and be like,
appreciate it.
Yeah, my dad, he told me all this shit. Or my dad kept me out of more mistakes than I could have made as a younger person.
This goes back to, I think, what we said at the very beginning. A beautiful way to wrap this up is he is seen least as a prophet in his own home. Mm-hmm. But even if you have prophetic messages to preach on, what kind of example are you actually setting for your kids for them to find value and deem worthiness in hearing you out for what you have to say? Because if you're telling them to be healthy, to do these things, but you're not doing any of those things, don't be surprised if they look at you for the hypocrite you are.
Exactly. And they just follow in your footsteps because mom and dad did it, you know, or whoever it may be did it. I'm just going to do the same thing. You know, change these habits. Don't be the smoker that says, hey, don't smoke.
Right.
You know,
that's what I really want to do with the children's books is I really want to make sure that there was a message for the parents to understand from such a simplistic lens to then be able to communicate that very message through the fun, interactive aspect of just the pictures and the rhyme scheme. Yeah. Because the kids are going to like the rhyme scheme and the pictures, but the parents understand the message. And if the parents can understand the message, they can, in other ways of their life, feed that to their kids.
Exactly. Because it's not going to happen in just that one read.
Of course not. Yeah. And then when the kids get older and they reference, oh, I have to not only be willing to help my friends, I have to have the ability to. I can't just say, yeah, I'll help you, and then I can't help actually lift this dresser or whatever. Yeah, I definitely can help you lift this dresser, but I'm not willing to because I don't really care to do that.
Yep.
Teaching them the balance of what these things have to offer is really what I was about when first making them. Mm-hmm. Mark and Max being the next one, I really think is going to be a good cherry on top for it's not just about setting goals because you can be stuck in the circle of being in your own head. That's what Mark does. Mark is stuck in his own head, just marking all these goals, but he's never maximizing his effort. Mm-hmm. And Max is always running in circles, going nowhere because he has no goals in mind. He's just giving a lot of effort with no real destination. And so again, when a parent can appreciate the overall moral of the story, the kid gets a early seed that's dropped into their brain that can be nurtured over time through the parent's wisdom of understanding the message. Then when the kids get older, they have something explicit they can reference in terms of the actual anecdote of wisdom.
Completely agree, man. But don't be the person on Facebook or Instagram putting up motivational quotes and not actually implementing them into your life.
100%. So, well, I appreciate you having me again, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Go get the book, guys. Check it out. This will be out on November 12th.
You can pre-order it now.
Yeah, pre-order it now, or better, go sign up at the gym. It's over in Gladstone. What was the address?
6906 North Oak Trafficway. 64118.
All right, you can't miss it. It's got a huge mural on the side of it. You can get everything there, one-stop shop. So I appreciate it again, Mitch. Do you got anything else you want to?
No, I think this has been amazing. 5th time on, 6th time will be the charm. I can't wait to keep having more conversations, bro.
Awesome, man. I'll see you then.
Appreciate it, brother.